back at those 20 Wimbledon wins, 20 times she held that big, beautiful plate.
Singles 9 times, yeah. 20 times
20 times altogether,
yeah.
right? You don't get the big plate for the
No, you get
singles?
smaller. Well, singles, now they have a bigger replica. Back then it was like this big, so. But on the court, you hold the big trophy, but then you take pictures with it, and that's that. You don't see it again until you win it.
You don't get to take it home and put it in your...
I'm really jealous because now when they win, they get to do all these photo shoots, and they hang out with the trophy for like a day. I saw it for like 5 minutes.
Or if you're the Blackhawks, you hang out with it all year, right? Well, anyway, taking a look at all those incredible trophies, the numbers are really staggering. 167 singles titles, 177 doubles titles. I mean, nobody has done this. And what I like best is Martina is still competing. She tells me her biggest competitor now is herself, which...
Used to be the case always, actually.
She's biking. She's playing some tennis. You're going in January to the World Tennis Challenge in Adelaide. So she's still out there, which is what I like to hear. And what I wanted to do is sort of look at this unbelievable career through the lens of the theme of the Humanities Festival, which is how the human animal can change and adapt over time. Because you have changed and adapted, obviously, so well through as tennis changed, as your body changed, as life moved on. You've made those changes.
Yep.
So I wanted to kind of look at your career through that lens. And let's start from the very beginning, when probably the biggest change in your life, one of the very biggest, was you're leaving Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic, at the age of 18, coming to the United States. Why, at that point, did you feel like that was the choice you had to make?
Well, it was complicated. Back then it was Czechoslovakia. And just to get out of the country, you couldn't, a normal person or an athlete, if you try to leave the country, you had to get the permission from the interior ministry to get a paper slip that you then took to the embassy of whatever country you were going to. So if I wanted to go to the States, I had to get this permit first, then you go to the American embassy, and if you have that permit, then you can get the visa. So you're at the mercy of the federation, the tennis federation, whether you got that slip or not. They wanted us to travel, so they would give us that slip. But that summer in '75, they said, no, we don't want you to go to U.S. Open. I was at the quarterfinals of Wimbledon that year.
Because they feared that you would thinking about defecting?
Well, we were thinking about defecting, actually. That summer, my parents came to Wimbledon, and my sister drove a little Skoda, this Czech tinderbox, drove it from Prague to London, took a vacation, and we were all in London, and we were thinking about doing it, but my father at the end didn't want to go because he didn't speak any English and couldn't provide for the family. So we didn't. So we drove back, took a little vacation in France and drove back, and there was actually a tournament in Pilsen at that time, and we went just to visit because it was on the way to our hometown, and everybody was so surprised to see us. Somehow people thought that we already left Czechoslovakia, but we didn't. Yeah. And nobody knew we were thinking about it, just the family. Because you had to even keep that silent, because then you could get in trouble for just thinking about it. So we went back, and then that summer the federation said, no, Martina, she's too Americanized. We don't want you to go to America, because you're hanging out with Chris Evert and Billie Jean King too much instead of playing with our players. And I was always very independent, of course, and kind of a troublemaker and defiant, as I still am to this day. And that didn't go over very well. So they said, no, you can't go. And at the end, they did let me go to the US Open. Jan Kodeš, who was the Czech #1, kind of intervened and helped me get that visa. But at that point, I knew that I couldn't go through this because I didn't know if I would ever get out again.
Did you tell your family what you were planning
to
do?
Well, my father knew, and he said you probably need to go, and if you do go, do not come back, no matter what we tell you over the phone, because they may put us up to that. So if you do go, do not come back, and don't tell your mother. So that was rough. Yeah.
So here you were in the United States, 18, with no family.
Yep.
How difficult was that? And your tennis was phenomenal. How were you able to do that, given the stress of what you just...
Well, in a way, it was easy because I already spoke English and I was making money. So I didn't have to worry about that. I was always going to eat and have a roof over my head. And I was able to now play tennis when and where I wanted. I wasn't depending on anybody telling me what I can do, what I can say, or what I can think, or what I can feel. So I was feeling pretty amazing about the possibilities. But the terrifying thing was, of course, that I couldn't go back to Czech Republic. If I did go back, they would have put me in jail for 2 years, and because I left without a visa, and I would never get out again. So that was not an option. So that was difficult, and I didn't know if I would see my family, if I would see them. It turned out it was 4 years before I saw my mom, and 5 years, one year later, I saw my dad and my sister when actually they did immigrate to the United States in 1980. They tried to come and live here, but that lasted about a year. Because again, my dad still, for the same reasons that he didn't do it in 75, he went back, and in 81 went back to Czechoslovakia.
And then eventually your Czech citizenship was restored. What was that like?
Well, Czechoslovakia became, the democracy in 89, and then split up, I think, 92. Czech Republic and Slovakia wanted to be independent, and I could travel back, as I did frequently, and then I could get my citizenship back, and I finally got the paperwork organized. It took me a long time. I finally got it all, I had to have all these naturalization papers and all this stuff that finally got it organized, sent it off, and 6 months later I still don't hear anything, so we called back and said, oh, we didn't get it. They lost it in the mail. So 5 years later I finally got it done.
And now you have dual citizenship.
I have a dual citizenship now for the last 3 or 4 years.
So, but when you first got here, you, as I said, your tennis was phenomenal. You were winning tournaments. But what kind of actual physical shape were you in at that time?
Well, I was in very good shape when I first came to America, which was January or February, actually first week of February in 1973. It was the USLTA tour, now the USTA, but back then it was the United States Lawn Tennis Association. I wasn't allowed to play on the Virginia Slims tour, which was the bigger tour then, because again the federation said, no, that's too radical, you need to play on the USLTA tour. So I played on the USLTA tour, which was great. Chris Evert played, and Ivan Gulagon, Virginia Wade. First tournament was in Fort Lauderdale. Second tournament was in Dallas. In Dallas, I had to buy myself a new pair of shorts because I put on 20 pounds in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right?
2 weeks, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
I was 16 years old. I was playing tennis 3-4 hours a day, and I just ballooned. And
so what were you eating?
Everything. Not junk food, nothing like that, just too much, because the food is completely different here. In Czech, it's, lots of dumplings and potatoes, a little piece of meat. Here, it's a big steak and a little piece of potato. And I would have 2 steaks for dinner. I mean, I just ate too much, or 2 hamburgers, whatever. Not McDonald's. I didn't discover that until a year and a half later. But I just ate too much. Pancakes. I would have eggs and cereal, which we didn't have in Czechoslovakia. No cereal, no pancakes. I discovered pancakes. Yeah,
so then,
anyway,
1981.
So for 2 years I was really heavy, 3 years, and then 76 finally the weight came off pretty much on its own. I think it was metabolism changed, when I first came here, puberty and all that stuff, and so I had baby fat on, and then 77 the weight came off, and I've weighed the same pretty much since 77, but then in 1981 that's when I really got in shape.
And why did you really get in shape? There was a match when Chris Evert beat you 6-0, 6-0. Never happened.
Well, there's a subplot to that.
Okay.
Into which I will not go, because it's really personal. So there was a little more going on than that. I was in decent shape.
But was that the score?
But that spring, yes, it was correct score. And that spring, I lost, I think, semifinals at the French, and early at Wimbledon as well, semifinals. On the grass, I didn't make it to the finals of a tournament. And my girlfriend then was Nancy Lieberman, who was an amazing basketball player. And she said, I always said I would play till I'm 30 and then I see. And she said, well, you're 26 now almost, and what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? She said, you're wasting your talent. I was like, what are you talking about? She said, you're not working hard enough. And that's when I realized I could work much harder. So I started training.
What did she do? What changed then? How did she change the way you ate? How did she change your training?
The diet kind of changed. As you train harder, as you know, when you train, your body automatically wants good food. It's not as I wasn't overweight. I wasn't eating junk food, but I just didn't eat properly, and I certainly wasn't training enough. So we just started running, sprinting, playing basketball, full court, 2-on-2, full court for an hour and a half. Running track, competing in the Superstars, so I was competing for the quarter mile, so I was running quarters a lot. Just
and
hard
you can
work.
see it even in the video, how your body changed really dramatically. I mean, you became...
Yeah, I weighed the same, about 145 pounds
Really?
since, well, now I'm about 160, but until about 5 years ago, I weighed 145 pounds, the same amount, but I was just in much better shape. And my father, you know, this is how naive, how things have changed. My father said, it doesn't matter as long as you weigh the right amount, that's all that matters. I'm like, no, Dad, it's the quality, not the quantity.
Right.
But the times have changed. The first tournament I played in Fort Lauderdale, I pulled a stomach muscle because I was serving too hard, playing against the big girls. And so I had a pulled stomach muscle, and the doctor said, oh, get in the jacuzzi. So I got in the jacuzzi, and of course it felt worse. I'm like, this can't be right. So I got out, but it never occurred to me to put ice on it. Because back then, you didn't do ice.
Wow.
You know, it just wasn't done.
Right.
It was until a couple of years later that we had a trainer on the tour and said, no, you got to ice. So now I swear by ice. As I'm sure you do
exactly.
too.
Ice baths.
But yeah, I did that once. That was enough.
Yeah.
we didn't have ice baths back then.
I just go into Lake Michigan then.
That's what I did.
Right.
At Eastbourne, we played a lot of rain delays, so I played like 6 matches in 2 days, you know, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. And the trainer said, you should just get an ice bath, but we don't have one, so get in the channel,
right.
English channel.
Exactly.
So I did.
And it works.
It worked, yeah. Except when I tried to heat up and got back to my hotel and ran out of hot water. So it was this big bathtub. It was about this much water. So I was flopping, you know, trying to warm up.
That's why the ice bath
Anyway, it worked.
didn't work.
I felt great the next day, but my teeth were chattering for like 3 hours.